I'm joined here today with Jonathan Goldsmith, aka Bad Motherfucker, aka Most Interesting Man in the World.
Everybody's got to do something, right?
Yeah. Well, welcome to Eaton.
Thank you, thank
Uh,
you. What a unique experience this hotel is.
yeah.
Really cool.
I believe in serendipitous moments. I met Jonathan last night in American Sun, the restaurant here, just casually eating dinner. Took him around the hotel, showed him a couple things, and we got to talking. And it was like, what better thing to do than to have him join us here in the radio station
How
and
perfect.
tell us a little bit about what makes a person interesting and how to become the most interesting man in the world. So I was reading a little bit about your story, and it's fascinating, and you don't believe everything you read.
I hope not.
Yeah. So what makes a person interesting is their past and their history. Take us back a little bit and how you got started.
I think so. Well, it's interesting. People come up to me on the street all the time and they say, "Hey, did you ever do anything before?" Yeah. I am the proverbial 50-year overnight success. I found my union card the other day, and I've been in the industry for 60 some years.
Yeah.
Hard to
That's
believe.
crazy.
But I did a lot of stuff. I guess starting over 350 shows, and when I hit my late 50s, early 60s, the hair turned gray, and I had played so many bad guys on television. I guess they got sick and tired, decided somebody else should become the killer.
You starred opposite a lot of famous people that.
Oh yeah, it's interesting, Tim. I have my feet in old Hollywood as well as new. I work with Burt. I starred opposite Burt Lancaster in a film about Vietnam called Go Tell the Spartans. You can still see it if you have Netflix. I worked with him and enjoyed that very much. Henry Fonda, Glenn Ford, James Garner, one of my favorites. I did a lot of Rockford Files, and on and on and on. Anyway, I dropped out, and I was out of Hollywood for 10 years. I started a company, and it was a network marketing company. It went international, did very, very well. And one day, unfortunately, I found out that my partner was playing games, and I quit my own company because of the irregularities.
I read something that was like $150 million company or something like that.
At least,
Yeah.
yeah. If it wasn't for that fact, I'd probably be a billionaire. We started waterless cleaning without water, waterless technology.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It was.
Yeah.
The world was running out of water,
Yeah,
as you may
still is.
know. And water was actually, at that time, in the late 1990s, more expensive than gasoline. Anyway, I dropped out. I quit my company eventually, and it was 10 years out of Hollywood. And out of sight, out of mind has a particularly difficult and unpleasant meaning in Hollywood. It's cold, and if I thought I couldn't get any place before, everything was shut to me. So I
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to go back, and I was giving these presentations all over the world. I had licensed 35 foreign countries, and I imagined each night giving these presentations that I was back on stage. I started on Broadway. I wanted to go back, and they weren't wanting me.
Yeah.
So it was a long road back, but one day I was living up in the high Sierras where I decided to chase trout for the rest of my life. I got a call from the only woman in Hollywood, the only agent that would handle me, and she said they're looking for a character. They're not sure what they want, but a Hemingway-esque type character. You have to do an improvisation that ends with the words, and that's how I arm wrestled Fidel Castro.
That is the most strange requirement to anything.
Yeah, so I went down to L.A. and took my old truck. I was a little short on money after suing my ex-partner. And
That's how suing goes, I guess.
Yeah.
I read
So-
something that was like 500 some people that you had to audition against.
Oh, my goodness. After sleeping in a campground without water and dressing in the back of my truck, I drove through Hollywood, and I get there, and there are approximately 500 people, all young, good-looking Latinos. I says, I don't have a chance. They're not looking for me, you know. So anyway, I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And anyway, I called my agent, Barbara, and I says, this is a waste of time. They're not looking for me. They want somebody younger, better looking, Latino. She says, you're a good actor. Go do an improvisation. I said to myself, let me see if I can still make them laugh And I said, the hell with it. I'll give it my best shot. Went into an empty studio, and they started asking me questions. There was just a bank of audio equipment on the
I read
on the
something
wall.
about you took off your shoes and maybe
Oh,
a sock or two.
No, I took off a sock, and
And what was the impetus to do something like that?
the director said, oh, they were all back in New York. I'm talking to this bare wall. And he says, why'd you take your sock off? I says, you proved the point. It's an icebreaker. So they started talking. They started laughing. What did you do in your young life? And what were your interests? I says, well, I was torn between being an OBGYN and a white hunter. So they laughed some more, and all of a sudden, I just had this stream of bullshit that came out of me and told these incredible stories, how I met Che Guevara, I loaned him a motorcycle, I screwed his mistress, and so Fidel heard about me, and anyway, we had a little problem because I was involved with one of the women that he liked. So he suggested a duel, and I said, we could get hurt that way. Why don't we arm wrestle? And that was it.
And at that point, they knew. Like you were
No,
the
no, I wish it was that easy. They didn't. I got out of there, and I called Barbara, the agent, who's now my wife, and I said, this is ridiculous. Don't waste your time, my time, or their time. And she says, don't worry about it. Just, you did the best you could. A month passed, they called me back, and there were, now I'm gaining, there were only 250 people.
Okay, cutting in
And
half.
that happened 2 more times. They went all over the hemisphere, and they couldn't find what they went as far as Buenos Aires. Couldn't find what they wanted, and finally, after 3 months, I got lucky. I was the one.
That's amazing. And then became, for over a decade now, now a cultural icon.
Yeah.
I mean, to say the least.
This is the sound of a lucky man.
Yeah, yeah. So you did the Dos Equis, and we were talking about, as being a cultural icon and what it did for the brand was actually amazing. It tripled revenue over the course of time, and then what happened towards the end of it?
Well, they brought in a couple of extra or new executives, and who had nothing to do with. This is the way I surmise the situation. I'll never really know exactly, but from my feelings were they brought in these 2 fellows who were entering into an extremely successful campaign and had nothing to do with it, so they decided that they were going to put their stamp on it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're there anymore. They decided that, well, they go younger,
Yeah.
and at that time they had signed a deal with ESPN for football, so they felt too old, so they sent me to Mars. Best thing that ever happened to me.
So you left for Mars.
Right.
Came back down to Earth.
Well, I came back with a treasure. Here it is,
Yeah.
Astral Tequila.
So what are you working on with them now? And how long have you
Well,
been with Astral?
I've been with them now. I guess we launched almost a year ago,
Okay.
and have been traveling around the United States. I think we've hit 60. No, in the last 9 months, I think we've hit close to 100 cities. Just introducing it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you're here in DC. Give me a little rundown of what you're working on here in DC.
Sure. What I usually do in a city, we go to some of the better stores and off-premise restaurants and introduce it, and I sign pictures for my fans. And
Yeah.
so many of them are nice enough to show up with my book, which I want to plug. It's
Yeah.
called Stay Interesting. Some really fun stories about old Hollywood, new Hollywood, how I got there.
Is it about
et
your
cetera.
entire path and how you got to where you are
Yeah,
right now?
yeah, it
Oh,
is.
that's amazing.
Anyway, here's where I'm going to be this afternoon at 4:30 to 6. Calvert Woodley Liquor Store at 4339 Continental Avenue, 4:30 to 6. And then tonight at a very good restaurant. I hear it's almost as good as yours. At
It's just a
Maya
different
Mayathal Restaurant at 8 o'clock, which is at 2609 24th Street Northwest. I'm not kidding about your restaurant. This food is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hotel's
glad you
cool,
enjoyed it.
too.
Yeah, it's kind of Eaton's kind of one of those more interesting new. I don't even know what kind of hotel you call it. Hopefully, we're defining our own
Artistic.
type of brand. Yeah, we were saying
Eclectic.
it's a hotel for creatives, a hotel for activists, a hotel
it's
for.
a wonderful environment. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh wait, I want to talk about one story that I read, and you tell me whether it's true or not.
Okay.
back in old Hollywood, I heard you got into something with Dustin Hoffman.
Oh, it's an interesting story. It's been very exaggerated, but Dustin and I were the two youngest fellows in a Broadway show over 50 years ago. And it was about a bunch of misfits on an island. They put us there because nobody was safe from us. I mean, real whack jobs. And Dustin and I were not only the youngest, but the two smallest. So in the Army, you're always lined up according to height, and we were always side by side. And we just kind of irritated each other. Both of us had one line, and we tried to embellish, and we were very competitive with each other, and we just rubbed each other the wrong way. And one day, we were pre-Broadway at the Forest Hall Theater, going into Broadway in Philadelphia. We were having lunch with some of the cast, and I was sitting next to Dustin. And I finally just jumped up and I said, Dustin, I said, the reason you don't like me is because I'm going to make it and you're not. So I ate crow, to say the very least.
Well, it seems like you both are doing pretty well now, so.
Yeah, well, he deserves all his success. He's a marvelous talent. This funny thing happened yesterday when I checked in. There was some person that recognized me from the first show I ever did. And it's the first line I ever said. It was on The Doctors. It was the longest running show on television. And some dear woman in Long Island wrote in, I was an extra. And she said she wanted to run a fan club for me. I said, that's cool. Extras don't get fan club. So she wrote voluminous letters to NBC. They thought they had a rising star on their hands. And I was making my national debut. They gave me one line, Doctor, she has a contusion on her ankle. Well, that's simple enough. I had been to the best school in New York, the Neighborhood Playhouse, which is probably still one of the best in the country for drama schools. And I practiced on the subway. I had 40 different dramatic interpretations of this line. And I step up on live television, 2:30, Friday afternoon. I step up to the doctor, and I said, Doctor, and I went completely blank. I said, her left ankle is corroded. So I'm lucky I'm still here. That was the first of many firings in my career.
Well, you got to fail a bunch of times to actually succeed, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan, and the most interesting man in the world, for coming to Eaton Radio. I hope you enjoy your stay. If you guys are out in DC, please go see him at Woodley Park or Maya Hell tonight.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure, Tim.